Have you ever come to a time in your life when you said, things just cannot get any worse? Maybe you're dealing with a disease in your life. You've gone to the doctor and you've heard those horrible, wretched words. Oh, you've heard those words before, but they were always about somebody else. But now the doctor has looked at you and said, you have cancer. You have leukemia. You have heart disease. You have some terrible disease. Maybe you've lost your job and you wonder, how can I put food on my table? How can I pay a house payment? How can I send my kids to school? Maybe you have sat by a bedside in the hospital and seen someone you love just being eaten away from the inside out by some wretched disease. And you saw their body just wither away and they died in your presence. And you thought things just cannot get any worse. Maybe you've had a son or a daughter that has gone astray, breaking your heart. Maybe you raised them up in church. You carried them to Sunday school and worship services, and they were in children's activities at church. But now they never darken the door of a church. Now they have nothing good to say about the things of God. You see, sometimes we come to those places in our life where we say things just cannot get any worse. Now, you young folks in the Pepsi crowd, you may not know that yet, but you just keep living. Those of us who are Geritol gangers, we already know. There are times in your life when you come to a point and you say things just cannot get any worse. What do you do? Brother Bob, what do you do when things just cannot get any worse? Well, that's what verse 18 is all about. When things just cannot get any worse, there are three little things here in verse 18 I want to share with you. Number one, when things just cannot get any worse, remember the power of yet. Y-E-T. Yet. Look at it. Verse 17, although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the field shall yield no meat, the flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls, yet. Yet. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means the fat lady hadn't sung yet. Amen? It means the last chapter of the book has not yet been written. In the words of that famous, inimitable, wonderful theologian, Yogi Berra, it ain't over till it's over. Amen? The power of yet. It may be in your life that you've come to a place that you've said, man, things just cannot get any worse. But don't quit. Don't throw in the towel. Don't run up the white flag. Remember the power of yet. Yet. Paul knew the power of yet. Over in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4, listen to what Paul said in verse 8. He said, we are troubled on every side. You see, the Apostle Paul and his companions had gone into Asia to preach the gospel. They'd gone there to tell people about Jesus. They'd gone there to plant churches. They'd gone there to ordain preachers that God called. They were there serving the Lord. They were not robbing any banks. They were not murdering anyone. They were not molesting any children. They were there serving Jesus. But he said, everywhere we turn, we're in trouble. He said, we're troubled on every side. We're troubled by the military crowd. We're troubled by the government crowd. We're troubled by the religious crowd. Nobody likes us. Nobody wants us. Everywhere we turn, we're in trouble. He said, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. The power of yet. General Blackjack Pershing was a great military leader. One day in the midst of a fierce battle, he said to his troops, he said, "Men, the situation is overwhelming. The Germans are in front of us. The Germans are to the back of us. The Germans are on the right hand, and the Germans are on the left hand. The situation is excellent. We shall attack." Amen? Paul said, we're troubled on every side, yet not distressed. Paul knew the power of yet. Job knew the power of yet. In Job 19:26, listen to what he said. And you know the book of Job is the oldest book in the Bible. It was the first book of the Bible ever written. Listen to what Job said. He said, "And though after my skin worms destroy this body." You know, death is not anything new. It's been around as long as human beings have been around. It's appointed unto man once to die. We're going to die. But in the day of Job, they didn't have steel caskets and they didn't have concrete vaults. When somebody died, they wrapped them in linens, put them in the ground, covered them up with dirt, and the alarm was sounded under the ground. All maggot worms report for dinner. And immediately upon being buried, here would come those maggot worms. They would come from miles around. And they would eat everything. They would eat the flesh and the tissue. They would eat the blood. They would eat the brain. They would eat the eyeballs. They would eat every organ. They would eat everything they could. And they would do it quickly. Nothing left but bones. But listen to what Job said. He said, "And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see God." You see, Paul understood the power of yet in the face of distress. Job understood the power of yet in the face of death. Habakkuk understood the power of yet in the face of desperation. Don't quit. When things get bad and you say they just cannot get any worse, remember the power of yet.